morning, YouTube, and happy Valentine's Day. I hope you and your students are doing well. I know it's been a little bit since I've been on YouTube. Things are going very well for me. I have some really exciting things to share, but I can't share right now, which is absolutely killing me. But yeah, I know I'm being so cryptic right now, but there is some big news coming. I'm going to be able to share it in a few weeks. But for right now, I wanted to show you what I'm doing for my students for Valentine's Day. Just a little something for my students, because yesterday we had a snow day. So that means today I have to give them a quiz. So I thought I'd give them a little Valentine. So I actually have to prep those now. And then what I thought I could talk to you about is how I'm introducing redox reactions to my honors chemistry students this time around. Usually I do a lot of front-loading information for redox, but I wanted to take a little bit of a different approach. So I'm going to share with you what I'm doing, and then I will probably do that right after I prep my Valentines for my students. I just finished prepping all of the Valentines for my students. It didn't take very long at all. All I did was cut out the different Valentines, write the students' names on them, and then attach a little Smarties to it. In fact, I got all of the Valentines from We Are Teachers. They had these very adorable little Valentines, so I just picked my favorite one, and then I found Smarties on sale at Walmart. And I got like 70 Smarties, I want to say, for like $3.50 or something like that. So it was an awesome buy. So I was just able to make a really quick little Valentine for my students, just to let them know that I value them, I think about them, and they thought it was very, very cute. So I was happy to make their day. Now for what I did with my honors chemistry students today. As I mentioned, typically any given year, I will just jump into redox reactions, basically describe what a redox reaction is, talk to them about how to assign oxidation numbers, and then move into how to balance via half reaction method. But this year I wanted to take a little bit of a different approach. I really like embedding everything that I'm doing in some sort of phenomenon. Now obviously we were looking at the phenomenon for the Hindenburg. That's usually how I introduce my unit on chemical reactions. After we go through the Hindenburg phenomenon and we come up with kind of this storyline and paint a more clear picture about reaction types and energetics involved, we then move into things like net ionic equations, redox reactions, and then eventually electrochemistry. So now we're kind of at a point where I wanted to introduce some sort of new phenomenon. And so instead of having my students be front-loaded all the information with how to balance via, half reactions, I thought what we could do is kind of change it so that now I'm introducing it using a sim. Typically, I like to have students look at the ways reactions can be represented in terms of word equations, formula equations, net ionic equations, and of course particle diagrams. And when I've taught redox in the past, I would usually front load the information about redox and then give the students some sort of like particle diagram to create based on what they learned. So this time around, I changed the order and I focused more on the particle diagram first. So I actually used the AACT's simulation focusing on single replacement reactions. We were just looking at activity 1, and then I created a worksheet where the students were kind of looking at the reaction, specifically the copper. We were adding the copper to all the different beakers, looking at what's happening at the macroscopic, and then down below the students were modeling the microscopic. At this point, my students are very comfortable with modeling reactions, especially net ionic equations, especially double replacement, single replacement. So now we have to take it a little bit a step further and start defining like what an actual redox reaction is and how do we know that it's a redox reaction. So my goal out of this activity was for our students to not only focus on like the ions in solution, but also focus on the electron transfer. And so fortunately today, this worked very, very well for my first 2 classes. I felt like my students definitely understood what a redox reaction is. But it was interesting because one of the things that the students struggled with is they were focusing on just what was going on in solution and what was precipitating. They were not including anything about the electrons, which was interesting to me. So one of the things that I did is I asked 4 students to bring up their models. I kind of mixed them up, and then I put all the different models on the overhead projector. And we kind of talked a little bit about some of the good aspects and some of the aspects that maybe could be a little bit improved. But it was interesting because so many students really didn't mention anything about the electrons. So that was really a good time for me to talk about, like, hey, there's something missing in this model that definitely was in the simulation. You know, what is it, and you know, what can you do in order to kind of include this in the model? And eventually at that point, we were able to define what a redox reaction is. So my students were able to come up with that definition. I introduced this idea of oxidation versus reduction, and of course I introduced the mnemonic Leo the lion says grr. That will help my students to identify what's being oxidized and what's being reduced. And then finally, my students have an Ed Puzzle video tonight where I talk about redox reactions, how to assign oxidation numbers, and how to write half reactions. So I really like this progression. I think that this was definitely a good move on my part. I'm gonna see how it goes tomorrow, but I think after we learn a little bit more about redox reactions and they feel comfortable with the half reactions, then what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have students revisit the models that they've created on this paper and revise it a little bit to reflect what they've learned. So if you haven't already done so and you're watching this channel and you're a chemistry teacher, you need to definitely join AACT, because AACT, the American Association of Chemistry Teachers, has some amazing resources. Their simulations are absolutely phenomenal. So if you're not a member, I'll leave a link down below, but this is an incredible organization that you can be a part of and get so many free things, right? Access to simulations and lesson plans and even readings, right? Via Chem Matters. I mean, that's a fantastic magazine written for chemistry students. So if you're not already a member, you definitely need to go check it out. I'll leave a link down below. Well, I think that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found something inspirational that you can take back to your classroom. As always, I welcome feedback. I will be offering this as a freebie on my website, MsRazChemClass.com. All you have to do is sign up for my email list and the download is yours. If you have suggestions for how to improve it, or if you use it in your class and it works really well, please feel free to reach out to me. You can send me an email, you can leave me a comment. As always, I wish you a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will definitely check in with you all